you've entered the excitement zone, because once you get them in on this first initial offer, and there's lots of things that you can do with that first initial offer, then your ongoing package is going to be, hey, it's Joel Irwin. Welcome to another very special episode of Sold with Webinars. Today, I have an awesome topic for you today. I just got off a consulting call with one of my high ticket courses students, and this sparked the inspiration for today's solo episode. On my call today with with this consulting client, with this student, we were talking about how he can transform his icky lawyer offer. He's a lawyer based in the UK, and I say icky not out of any disrespect. We're going to dive into this in just a second, but he wanted to know how to repackage his offer so he could develop the high ticket courses model. And so he came to me and he says, Joel, what I've got is, I'm a lawyer I'm a lawyer based in the UK, and I'm looking to create more productized offers for my services. And so during the first initial part of the call, we were doing discovery. Like, okay, great. Tell me exactly like what you do for your clients, and let's figure out how we can design an offer. Now, the problem that most of these people run into when in the service provider space is that for lawyers particularly, people don't really want to hire a lawyer. So we are presented with an interesting challenge for how to design something that people actually want to get them to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in hiring you as a lawyer. Now, spoiler alert, nobody wants to hire a lawyer until they actually need them. It's almost like nobody wants to install an alarm system in their home until they get broken into, until something happens that tells them you need an alarm system. It's the exact same thing. Selling prevention is extremely difficult. Okay? Nobody wants it until they've experienced something that forces them to need it. So we go into this conversation and I explained this to him. I said, listen, the first thing that you're going to run into is that we have to figure out how to position yourself so you are not fighting the stigma of, oh, this is a lawyer, because I don't need a lawyer. People don't really need a lawyer until something happens. So we were going through this conversation, and he was telling me, I want to sell productized offers for what I do. I help, his first idea was to help people protect their business, protect their e-commerce business so they don't get shut down. I said, listen, I'm sure that's extremely valuable, but nobody is going to proactively seek that out unless they've already experienced an issue with the government coming to try and shut down their site because of some sort of infraction or infringement of services. So while I'm, more than happy to help you put that together, I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, you are going to run into a severe uphill battle. So what I want to spend our time doing is figuring out what else you do, because we need to figure out something that excites people. We need to figure out what you do in your business that excites people and gets them to raise their hand. Because while you want to sell protection, protection is not what they are going to come to you for. And particularly if you're running paid traffic to this offer, you have to develop something that excites people. So we need to dive deep into your offers, dive deep into what you do for fulfillment, and then we can extract your ideal avatar. We can extract the situation that people would want to come to you for, because you can always sell protection on the back end, but as a front end offer, as a front end positioning, it's a horrible way to generate customers, because it's not what people want. So we started to dive deep. We started to have that conversation and uncover what else you were doing in your business. What else do you do for your clients? And so as I was asking him this question, I said, tell me like the last 3 or 4 clients that you worked with, what did you do? And so as we had this discussion, as we had this conversation, he said, well, there's, what I've helped people do. He said, one of the things that I help people do is if they're in growth mode, I help them structure their HR documents, structure their employee handbooks, because we have very stringent requirements in the UK, much more stringent than, what I've seen in other countries like the US, et cetera, et cetera. I said, okay, well, you've got something there, right? So maybe what you're doing, maybe the people that you attack, not attack, maybe the people that you target for this offer now is people who are in growth mode, and maybe they've hired people in the past, but they're not sticking around because they don't have systems in place, they don't have structures in place to keep their employees. So these new hires are coming in, and once they're hired, they're seeing that this company is completely disheveled, disorganized, and they're leaving for one reason or another. Now we've got a clear and present pain point that we can target, because we know it's very expensive to hire employees. We know it's very expensive to train employees. And the more people that they're siphoning through, the more people that are leaving, that's a lot of money lost on the table. So if you can go in and you can help people shore up those systems so they can have a repeatable hiring process, a predictable hiring process that gets them ingrained and embedded into the culture, hey, there's a first idea. So already the first idea that we had was drastically different than what he came on the call wanting. He said, Joel, I want to, initially he's like, I want to help protect people's websites so they don't get shut down. It's like, blah, boring offer. Let's dive deep. Like, tell me what else you do. And so the first thing that we came up with was developing HR systems, right? Developing employee handbooks, right? That needs to be sexified a little bit, but he started to see the light. He was starting to see, oh, okay, like I can see now that I'm getting them excited about something, right? I said, okay, great. Well, there's one idea. Now keep telling me more about like your past 3 or 4 clients. Like, what else did you help them do? And so we thought about it for a couple minutes and said, okay, well, Joel, one of the other things that I'm excited about is I'm excited about helping people structure their company so it can be sold. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. I said, pump the brakes, man. I said, okay, tell me more about this because this gets me excited. And he goes, okay, well, when people are getting ready to sell their business, there are lots of things that they have to develop. So when they're ready to present this business up for sale, people understand, okay, great. These processes are in place. We have accounting systems in place, so it's all systematic, and it's easier for them to sell if all of this stuff is put together like an actual business. Because so many people go to sell their business, and it's like, they know how to generate revenue, but just generating revenue is not necessarily the only appealing thing to potential buyers. They want turnkey systems. They want to make sure that once it's handed over to them, it's going to continue operating like a system. And so many people have a lot of broken parts in that system. So I'm going to go through and I help them shore up all these systems, build these systems, fix these systems so it's much more lucrative, it's much more valuable to the buyer. And I said, you've got something there. Like now we're moving into the investment-minded zone, meaning your potential prospects are not even viewing you as a lawyer right now. They're viewing you as somebody who can help them sell their business. And he said, yeah, like I can really help them sell their business. And I'm sure if you help develop these systems, it can even increase their multiple, increase their valuation, right? And he said, well, yeah, absolutely. I said, okay, great. Now you have a much better angle and you have a much better target market that you can go after. And you're not even positioned as the lawyer, right? It's like once you come in and you are positioned as somebody who can help them sell the business and reframe the business, now you're entering in a whole new world of value to the customer. And so he gets really excited. I hear his voice getting really excited. Oh my God, that's awesome. Like, yes, I can totally help people do that. I said, well, let's keep going even further, right? So what else do you help people do? He's like, well, what I'm really passionate about doing is help people in the business acquisition system. Like, man, in a span of 10 minutes, we have gone from, a dull, boring offer that's going to be incredibly difficult to sell to now going into the excitement zone and helping attract people who are wanting to sell their business or wanting to buy businesses, and you become their partner, their right-hand man to figure out what are the things that they need to look for, what are the things that they need to avoid, and you've entered the excitement zone. Because once you get them in on this first initial offer, and there's lots of things that you can do with that first initial offer, then your ongoing package is going to be, all right, now let's make sure you have all your systems in place to protect what you've got built. It's easier to sell protection on the back end for ongoing than it is on the front end. And I see so many people make this mistake, right? If you are listening to this right now and you're in like the service space or you're in a non-sexy space, I want you to do this exercise. Go through this exercise because you're probably you're looking through too narrow of a window right now. You're thinking, well, I've got this product that I really want to sell, just like my client. Like he really wanted to sell productized information for how to protect somebody's business. And so he was so focused on that. But in reality, he did so much more, and he just needed to go through the exercise of tell me what else you've helped your customers do, and you have to extract the thing that is most exciting. That most exciting thing is going to be what you have to approach your cold traffic, your advertising, and your front end offer. Reorganize your offers because in the case of this example, he was trying to sell his back end offer, his ongoing offer as his front end. And a lot of times ongoing offers are not as sexy as the front end. Ongoing support, maintenance, protection, those are all back end offers. You have to extract what is the exciting part of what you do, and that's where you need to focus for your front end offer. This goes true for lawyers. This goes true for accountants. This goes true for like bookkeepers. Any of these non-sexy services, you have to dive deep and figure out what it is that you do in a sexy way to attract people into your world that gets them to raise their hand and gets them to say, yes, that makes sense. Yes, I understand it. Let's talk. Okay? Because in the case of a lawyer, nobody wants a lawyer until they need one. So we need to figure out what do they want, and that's how we have to approach them. That's how we need to frame our front end messaging, because you never want to be starting your journey with 100 pounds strapped to your back. And with the idea of lawyers, when somebody doesn't want a lawyer but they need them, you need to position it so you're not approaching them as a lawyer, because those are arguments that you want to just completely avoid. Make sense? This was a huge revelation for my client, and by the end of that 20-minute call, he was like, holy crap, like you could see the light bulbs were going out. He was so excited. I was so excited. And I wanted to make sure that I hopped on this podcast here today and shared that with you, because it's a true revelation that I see so many people miss, especially if you're in a quote unquote unsexy niche. I hope this was valuable for you. If you enjoyed this episode, I would greatly appreciate it if you left an honest review. Head over to iTunes, head over to Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Give an honest review. It'll help us get more exposure. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you listening to this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.